Case in point, today is a topic we come back to every month or so, which is how to read the news at any level. An incredibly important skill to have when you're moving to Israel, and whether it's making aliyah, thinking of making aliyah, you're just interested in Israel, understanding that news here happens fast. Things happen fast. Some of you may know what movie that comes from. Regardless, things happen fast. And most importantly, because the vast majority of people who live here are Hebrew speakers, they are reporting it in Hebrew. They are not reporting it in English. Before you come at me, remember that, as we talked about last week, there is a point in the universe. It isn't necessarily you or me or any of us. Meaning that, yes, there is an English language media that comes out of Israel. No, it is not meant for local consumption. And I know that because if I go onto those websites or I listen to those newscasts, they're not telling you the traffic report. They're not telling you necessarily the weather report. They're not telling you what we're about to cover today, which is really important if you happen to live here in Israel, right? So just because there is reporting in Israel and about Israel, and Lord knows we know is a lot of reporting about Israel, that isn't necessarily suited in English for someone who lives here full time. And so what we do in this lesson is to understand what is the constellation of major news sites that the vast majority of Israelis access on a regular basis. And how do we read for context? Meaning whether it's the topic itself or the outlet we're looking at, what can I look at regardless of what level I'm at, including, and especially by the way, at a beginner's level to understand what's going on? And do I need to read because this is important to me? Or can I move on and not have this bother me? Because again, things happen fast here. It's important to know what is relevant for me to consume and what things I can leave aside. And that's what we're going to do today. This is a topic that is incredibly important to those who live here. And it is not, as of now, been reported in English, and understandably so. So we're going to get to it. We did this a couple of weeks ago where we tried to change up the format, whether we're looking at an online written text or audio or news that's specifically meant for an easy Hebrew text for those who are learning. We're going to do a version that we did a couple of weeks ago, which is watch a news clip that's been recorded. It's only from the last 24 hours. It's already on YouTube. So you're able to watch it after this class on repeat. You can stop it, you can pause it, you can slow it down, and which we're also going to do here. But before we watch it, I'm going to give you some vocabulary. Now, before you come at me in the comments, I'm giving this vocabulary to frame what we're looking at because we're going to translate the article together, the news thing together. Once you get the recording, you'll get both the vocabulary and a link to the article so you can watch it again and again and again and again, right? Because let's face it, it's the news. And if you're listening to the news or watching the news, you can't necessarily pause it. Wait a minute, what did he say? Right? So in giving you some of the vocabulary ahead of time, I'm giving you that leg up. So let's first look at some of the vocabulary. Some of this we've covered before. And those of you who join us on Wednesday's class for Cafe Oleh Conversations, you're going to be using this vocabulary along with our long-standing conversation sheets on how to express an opinion to talk about the article we're about to do. At the top of the hour, I'll both answer your questions in the chat and the Q&A. Excuse me, just in the Q&A, not in the chat. If you have any questions about this class, please write in the Q&A. And I'll tell you about Wednesday's class as well as next week's class. So some vocabulary you're going to need to know. And yes, I'm teaching you these words right now. No, I'm not expecting you to memorize them right now. And please don't ask me in the comments, can I get a copy of this? You will get a copy of it, just not in real time. So if you'd like to old school pen and paper write, you know how you used to do in class, that actually would be a good thing. You can also screenshot this. You can also just sit back and relax and enjoy the show, as it were, or the class, however you think of this hour together. So first off, what we're talking about in this lesson is a very important topic here in Israel for many years now, but especially in the last several years, Yoker Mechya. Yoker Mechya means cost of living, or it's the term that we use when we talk about not just the cost of living, it's inherent in the word Yoker, the rising cost of living. Yoker is related to the word yakar, expensive, and Mechya as it should sound like and look like, comes from the word chaim, life, right? So the cost of living, yokeh mechia. Okay? We're going to look at a specific scheme that the government has just introduced and both what it entails and the criticism of it. But to understand that, I'm going to give you some vocabulary right now, which again, absorb it now, don't absorb it, write it down, don't write it down, screenshot, don't screenshot. Don't worry, you'll get a copy of this vocabulary sheet. Okay? The word for price, right? A price, the cost of something. Mechir, mechir, however you say the letter resh, right? And prices, mechirim. A product is mutzar, products, mutzarim. And don't worry, when you get a copy of the spreadsheet, I will also put in the gender of each of the words. Mutag and mutagim, brand and brands, right? So you would call a brand, right, the name of the company that sells it. Okay. Salchan and salchanim, consumer or in consumers. This word, by the way, is related to a word many of you know, tzarich. Tzarich in modern Hebrew means need. Okay, and that same root, tzadi resh chaf, gives us words that have to do with consuming things, right? The idea of taking it in. So litzroch is the verb for to consume. Salchan is the person who consumes, aka the consumer. Okay. You're going to hear a lot in this section we're about to cover. Rishtot hashivuk, or simply rishtot. Okay. Rishtot hashivuk is made up of two words. Reshet, many of you know what a reshet is. Reshet is a net, but it is also a network, right? It is the thing you catch fish with or catch anything with, but it is also a network. It's the term that we use for networking, the internet, all sorts of different things, or just the people you know, right? Rishtot is the plural in the construct form, and shivuk is the modern word for marketing. But it's also related to the word, and this is where it comes from, shuk. You know what a shuk is? It's an open-air market, typical of the Middle East. From that term, shuk, we get the word shivuk, marketing. When you put these two words together, don't literally translate it. Rishtot shivuk in modern Hebrew refers to supermarket chains. You're only going to hear that term in context of supermarket chains. Okay, rishtot shivuk, or as you're going to hear in this news article, simply rishtot. Okay. Yoter means more. Achi means the most. Zol means cheap. Michraz. Michraz is a very important word when you want to understand Israeli economics, which you're going to get a little bit of in this clip. Okay, michraz means a tender or a bid. Essentially, anything you do in Israel in the public sphere, whether that's applying to a job in a public institution, importing a specific good, anything like that has to go through a process of a michraz, meaning that several different people need to bid to get the exclusive on something. That could be, for example, on a research grant or even a job offering, but also importing goods, right? Every imported good in Israel is assigned to a specific distributor. And the idea was to make it even, right? To make it fair so that the best price would be passed on to the consumer. In reality, that doesn't exactly work. Kalkala means the economy. Bechirot, elections. If you've forgotten, we are already in an election year here in Israel. Right? Tacharut is both a contest, but it is also competition. Rikuzit comes from the same root as words like melkaz, a center of something, or mirukaz, concentrated. Rikuzit is centralized. Okay? And finally, the word amid with an aleph means affluent. If you couldn't figure out from this vocabulary sheet, we're going to watch together a clip from the news, like I said, from the last 24 hours. I slowed down the volume, which is a great thing you can do on YouTube, right? We're not going to watch it at normal speed. We're going to watch it slightly less, not at 50% because it's way too slow, but also not at 1% at 100 because it's a little too fast. 75%. I'm going to pause it along the way and help translate it for you. We are going to watch as much as we can together. You're going to watch the rest on your own if we don't get through it. But here's the gist of what we're going to look at. Pull it up. Okay, well, what are we going to look at? Essentially is this. The government, and specifically Misrad HaKalkala, we just said that word Kalkala, Misrad HaKalkala, the economy ministry, has announced a new michraz, a new bid or a new tender. And the idea is for the Rishtot HaShivuk, and let me pull up the vocabulary list as you were saying this, right? The idea for the government is to they've already announced a michraz, a bid, for the biggest rishtot shivuk in the country, meaning those supermarket chains that have 40 or more branches throughout the country, to basically offer the consumer, the tzalchan, 100 chosen items at the cheapest price. Right? On the surface, that sounds like a good thing. You're going to hear in this article why that's not such a good thing from both the supermarkets, the items, and so forth. But these are the major words you're going to hear again and again. So we're going to watch it as much as we can together. I'm going to slow it. I've slowed it down, like I said. I'm going to translate it as much as possible frame by frame. It may not be a literal translation, but it's to get you to understand it because, again, this is a really important topic when it comes to Yoker Mechia, that, again, if you're not living in Israel, you don't necessarily hear about, much less it affects you. But if you live in Israel, it definitely affects you. So let's watch together. Okay, there are subtitles at the bottom. This is the benefit of watching the news, pre-recorded segments on the news, even on live TV. There will always be subtitles in Hebrew. Start. Screen.
מול עינינו רק דבר אחד, מה טוב לצרכנים.
Okay, this is the Sal HaKalkala, the economy minister, Neil Balkat, the former mayor of Jerusalem. And what does he say at the beginning?
מול עינינו רק
מול עינינו רק דבר אחד, מה טוב לצרכנים. In front of us, there's only one thing that's important. What's good for the consumers? מה טוב לצרכנים, צרכנים, one of our words.
דבר אחד, מה טוב לצרכנים.
שר הכלכלה ניר ברקת השיק את מיזם הסל.
שר הכלכלה ניר ברקת, the economy minister ניר ברקת, השיק את מיזם הסל של ישראל, has launched the initiative or the scheme of the Sal Shel Yisrael. The name of the scheme is called Asal Shel Yisrael. Sal is a shopping cart. You can think of it either as the one that you hold in your hand or the one that you wheel. Even though they have different names, it's typically the one you hold in your hand, but it's referring in a larger metaphorical sense to when you buy groceries at the store.
של ישראל, מהלך שלטענתו עשוי להוריד את מחירי המזון ברשתות.
Okay.
סל של ישראל,
מהלך שלטענתו עשוי להוריד את מחירי המזון ברשתות. A means by which, according to him, is going to lower the price of food in the major supermarket chains.
טענתו עשוי להוריד את מחירי המזון ברשתות בעקבות תחרות
In the wake of the tacharut, that word we had again, competition that this reform is going to create.
רפורמה תיצור.
הדבר הזה זה חשיבה מחוץ לקופסה.
This thing is chashiva michutz lekufsa, a term that is very much not what it's describing. Chashiva is thinking, michutz outside of, kufsa the box, right? Things that are outside the box you usually don't describe it as being outside the box. So he's saying this idea, this scheme is thinking outside the box. שפיתחנו ביחד עם אנשים טובים, that we developed together with אנשים טובים, with good people. Who these good people are? Who knows?
אנחנו ביחד עם אנשים טובים שבא ואומר, אנחנו
שבא ואומר, אנחנו מעזים לעשות דברים שלא עשו בעבר. So we developed this together with these good people who came together and said, we dare to do something that no one else has done in the past.
מעזים לעשות דברים שלא עשו בעבר.
במסגרת המיזם
במסגרת המיזם מפרסם משרד הכלכלה סל מוצרים סגור ומוגדר מראש. Okay, so here's part of the scheme you need to understand. In the framework of this scheme, משרד הכלכלה מפרסם, right? Remember, we've talked about this before. When you look at the order of words, especially in the news, they often change it around to talk about what is the focus, what is the important thing to take away. So they're putting the action before the subject here. מפרסם משרד הכלכלה, first off, because this is old-fashioned but also proper Hebrew. That is actually verb, subject, object in terms of word order. But they're emphasizing the action that Misad HaKalkala, the economy ministry, is taking. So what are they doing? The plan is a basket, sal mutzarim, a basket of goods, a basket of products, meaning a full cart or a full shopping cart, right, of products that are sagur umugdal merosh. Sagur means closed, and mugdal characterized or categorized. What do they mean? That it's going to be a set list of products, right, that are going to be advertised together in this sal.
מפרסם משרד הכלכלה סל מוצרים סגור ומוגדר מראש,
רשתות הקמעונאות המתמודדות יידרשו להגיש הצעת מחיר. So the retail chains, that long scary word means retail, the retail chains that are competing in this michaz, in this bid, will be instructed to give a hatzat machir. Hatzat machir is a price proposal. Okay? Anyone who works in business, has their own business, works in anything where you are providing a service to someone, will always have to give a hatzat machir. Or if, for example, if you need service at home, a plumber, an installer, or something like that, you'll always be getting a price proposal, in Hebrew, hatzat mechil. So each of these retail chains, if they want to compete, will need to offer a price proposal for this list of products, okay, food products.
הקמעונאות המתמודדות יידרשו להגיש הצעת מחיר לכל אחד מהמוצרים, והרשת שמחיר הסל שלה יהיה הנמוך ביותר תקבל מימון ממשלתי של 50 מיליון שקלים וקמפיין שיווקי בשיתוף המשרד.
So, the winner of this michaz, the winner of this bid of the supermarket chains that offers the lowest price of this set list of goods, right, will receive from the government 50 million shekel and a marketing campaign in cooperation with the ministry. Okay, so each one is going to get this list. They have to then present, as part of their michaz, as part of the bid, the cheapest price for the total amount of the products in this list. And the winner, meaning the winning supermarket chain, not you, the consumer, the winning supermarket chain gets 50 million shekels and a marketing campaign.
המטרה לדברי השר להוריד
המטרה, the goal, לדברי השר, according to the minister, is to להוריד את יוקר המחיה המתעצם. Right? So יוקר מחיה, remember, cost of living. The goal is to להוריד, to make lower, right? Related to the verb לרדת. So to lower the cost of living that is only מתעצם, that is growing.
את יוקר המחיה מתעצם.
אני לא קבוע בשום מקום, אני הולך איפה הכי זול.
פחות בקטע שהמדינה תתערב ותעזור
איפה הכי זול.
So now you're going to hear several citizens talking about how they buy groceries. So this guy, for example,
פחות
says,
בקטע שהמדינה
לא קבוע בשום
אני לא קבוע בשום מקום, אני הולך לפי איפה שהכי זול. Two words that we had in our vocab list. I am not fixed, אני לא קבוע בשום מקום, meaning I don't shop at any specific place all the time. אני הולך לפי איפה שהכי זול. I go wherever is הכי זול, the cheapest, right? הכי means the most, זול means cheap. Put these two words together, the cheapest.
מקום, אני הולך איפה הכי זול.
אני פחות בקטע
אני פחות בקטע שהמדינה תתערב ותעזור לרשתות השיווק. I am not a fan of, I am less pro is another way to think about this. אני פחות, I am less בקטע in favor of, a very loose translation, שהמדינה תתערב, that the state will get itself involved with and will help out the supermarket chains. Okay, so this guy is not for any initiative or scheme in which the government helps out the supermarket chains.
שהמדינה תתערב ותעזור לרשת השיווק.
אני לא אלך נגיד למשל לשופרסל שהוא מרוחק רבע שעה נסיעה מהבית שלי, גם אם הוא יהיה זול יותר, אני לא אעשה את זה.
And here's another woman who says, I won't go to the biggest supermarket chain, Shupersal, even if it's cheaper because it's so much farther away from me, right? Even if it's zol yoter, cheaper than what's nearby, I need somewhere convenient and nearby.
רשתות בפריסה ארצית של לפחות 40 סניפים יוכלו לגשת למכרז והמחיר יהיה חייב להיות אחיד בכל הסניפים
Any supermarket chain that has less than 40 branches will also be able to submit their hatzat mechir, their price proposal, and the price will need to be the same, achid, uniform, in all of the branches and online. It's a common practice, by the way, in Israel that one branch of a larger chain will offer a price in one place that's different than the other.
באתר. לטענת המשרד, הסל צפוי לחסוך
לטענת המשרד, הסל צפוי לחסוך 2,000 שקלים למשפחה בשנה. According to the ministry, this sal, this cart of goods, is expected to save a family approximately 2,000 shekels a year.
2,000 שקלים למשפחה בשנה.
אנחנו רואים פתאום הרבה יוזמות מטעם משרד.
So this guy, his name is Gal Kolog, right? And it says on the right-hand side what he does, just like they would on any news source around the world. This is, by the way, Khan. This is Israel's public broadcaster that we're watching. And it says he's a katav tzalchanut atzmai. Remember that word tzalchan we had, right? Consumer. So he's a consumer reporter and he's atzmai. He's independent. Okay, so meaning he doesn't work with any specific news source, news media agency. And he's saying we're seeing a whole bunch of different initiatives from Misrad HaKalkala, from the economy ministry, Misrad HaOtzar, the finance ministry.
משרד הכלכלה, משרד האוצר, יש מי שיקרא לזה כלכלת.
יש מי שיקרא לזה כלכלת בחירות. And there are those who would call this an elections economy. What is he saying? He's saying that because it's an election year, that all of a sudden you see a whole bunch of initiatives being brought up in the news and to consumers that's supposed to ease their lives, and thus the idea is to make the government or the incumbent more favorable to vote for.
בחירות.
ברקת מכהן בתפקיד יותר מ3 שנים, ולאחר שתוכניתו הקודמת לא הובילה לתוצאות, המומחים ספקנים לגבי התוכנית החדשה.
So, they're saying that Neil Barkat has been the economics minister for the last 3 years, and his previous initiative did not yield the results that he wanted to, and we'll talk about that initiative in just a second. And so, mumchim safkanim, right? And after his previous program did not bring results, לאחר שתוכניתו הקודמת לא הובילה לתוצאות, המומחים ספקנים לגבי התוכנית החדשה. Experts are skeptical regarding this new program. So we're going to hear one of these experts in a moment.
ספקנים לגבי התוכנית החדשה.
שר הכלכלה ברקת עשה הוא הגדול מאוד לגבי משהו טוב לאירופה, טוב לישראל.
So this guy, Dr. Alex Komen, he's a Parshan Kalkali. He's an economics commentator, and he also teaches at the Machon Technologi Hulon, at the Technological Institute in Hulon, called HIT. He says, Sara Kalkala Balkat Asa Huha Gadol Meod. That economy minister Balkat has done a big hoo-ha. I mean, like a big, think of it, the word just like in English, hoo-ha, right? He did a big tada. Regarding his previous initiative, which was called in Hebrew, Masha Tov le'Europa, Tov le'Israel. What's good for Europe is good for Israel.
טוב לישראל, אפילו יצאנו לדבר אישית בנושא.
אפילו יצא לנו לדבר אישית בנושא הזה. We even got the chance to speak with him personally about the topic.
זה היה כישלון טוטלי.
זה היה כישלון טוטלי. It was a total כישלון, failure.
לא ראינו אף דוגמה של מוצר שהמחיר
לא ראינו אף דוגמה של מוצר שהמחיר שלו ירד. We didn't see one example of a product, מוצר, שהמחיר, another word from our list, that whose price fell.
שלו ירד.
ויש גם ביקורת מהותית.
And there's also ביקורת מהותית, substantial criticism.
ברקת מקדם סל של מוצרים מסוימים.
ברקת מקדם סל של מוצרים מסוימים. Balkat, the minister, is advancing or proposing or pushing forward this basket of goods to take home, of foodstuffs, right? Of specific products.
רובם מותגים חזקים.
רובם מותגים חזקים, the majority of which, רובם, מותגים חזקים, we just had that word מותג, right? Are big brands, or in this case, strong brands, meaning big brands.
במקום לפתוח את השוק.
במקום לפתוח את השוק לתחרות עם מוצרים ומותגים זולים יותר. Instead of opening the market to competition with products and brands that are cheaper. For example, you'll see in a second.
לתחרות עם מוצרים ומותגים זולים יותר.
אם אנחנו נסתכל על השורות הקטנות של המכרז הזה, הוא מדיר שוב לא מעט רשתות או יוזמות שעוזרות דה פקטו הלכה למעשה לציבור הישראלי להתמודד עם יוקר המחיה.
He's saying that if we look at the fine print of this, it actually is not helping the Israeli consumer deal with the rising cost of living.
אם זה רשתות
For example, those of us in Israel in the last few years know all about Max Stock and all the different companies that are called stock, right? Where it's a lot of cheap goods, usually from the People's Republic of China, that have flooded Israel and that are really popular stores to go to, right? So that's when he says, Reshtot HaStok.
סטוק שולחות ומתחזקות בשנים האחרונות.
אם זה Osher Ad, many of you are familiar with the supermarket chain Osher Ad here in Israel, which was originally built for the Haredi population, but it's also very popular with people of all sizes because even though it's not a bulk store, they do sell Kirkland products. Those of you who know Costco know Kirkland as their home brand, right? So this is a place where you can often buy things in large quantity at cheaper rates. So he's saying that also not included in this scheme are the stock stores, but also Osher Ad.
רשת אושר עד, שלצורך העניין אין לה 40 סניפים, או כמובן חברה לתועלת הציבור, החישוק, הוא לצורך העניין לא יוכל להתמודד.
Essentially, that anyone who isn't a large supermarket chain, including places like Stock, which usually sell anything but goods, and food goods, or Osher Ad, which is a very popular chain, but it doesn't have 40 branches, can't necessarily participate in this list. And he's going to explain why, also based on what people like and don't like.
מה נכנס לסל? משקאות של קוקה קולה, חטיפים של אוסם, שוקולד נוטלה, גבינות של גד ועמק, קפה ומילקי של שטראוס וחיתולים של אגיס.
right? What are some of these products, the over 100 products that are included in this competition to bid on for the cheapest price altogether? Mashkaot shel Coca-Cola. Even if you don't know the word mashkaot, you know the word Coca-Cola. All products of Coca-Cola. Chatifim shel Osem. Osem, of course, is a Israeli is an Israeli food concern. So chatifim, snacks made by Osem. Chocolate Nutella, Nutella chocolate, right? Not Israeli, but popular spread. Gvinot shel Gad ve'emek, cheeses, specific cheeses. Cafe ve'milki shel Strauss, right? Coffee and the milky pudding made by Strauss. Chitulim shel Huggies, Huggies diapers. What's on this list? What's not on this list? Big brand names, as he said before. Also look at the actual things. You see anything healthy on this list? There's a lot of criticism that we're not going to get into in this specific article that talk about there is nothing healthy in this list. Fruits and vegetables are not included in this list. Healthier options for things aren't included in this list. Non-processed foods are not included in this list. That is meant to be affordable for everyone. Can affordable also be healthy is a legitimate question to also ask.
סל מוצרים לבתים עמידים.
Right? סל
שטראוס וחיתולים של אגיס. סל מוצרים
סל מוצרים לבתים עמידים. Right? It's not just that these are big companies, and it's not just that, as I just said, there isn't necessarily healthy on this list. It's also for batim amidim, for privileged homes, right? These are not products that come cheap, that especially when there's competition to be had. And even though the idea is to lower the prices of these individual things, you still have to buy them all together. And it's not necessarily clear who's going to come out the winner.
לבתים עמידים.
מחיר האורז בעולם ירד משמעותית, בארץ הוא עלה.
For example, right, our economic commentator says, Mechir ha'orez ba'olam, the price of rice, orez, in the world has fallen dramatically or significantly, mashmautit, ba'aretz hu'ala. The price in Israel, however, has gone up.
אני חושב שזו דוגמה אחת חזקה שמראה שמחיר המוצרים בארץ לא מחובר בכלל לעלות האמיתית שלהם.
This is a strong example, he says, of how the prices in Israel are not connected whatsoever to their real value.
אלא בגלל הריכוזיות
אלא בגלל הריכוזיות במשק קוראים לציבור את הצורה. But because of the concentrated centrality or the centralization of food providers, food distributors, food importers, and the big supermarket chains in the market, קוראים לציבור את הצורה. They are tearing the public a new one. It's a nice way to say it, but it's tearing, it is tearing apart the public is a more PG way to say this.
במשק קוראים לציבור את הצורה.
במקביל לתוכנית שפורסמה
במקביל לתוכנית שפורסמה היום, in parallel to the scheme that was announced today,
היום מודיע ברקת על שחרור מלאי של
מודיע ברקת על שחרור מלאי של מזון לתינוקות. Balkat has announced the release of stock of baby formula.
של מזון לתינוקות ממחסני החירום הלאומיים בניסיון להוריד את המחירים הגבוהים.
That essentially the economy minister has released a supply of baby formula that was in the מחסני חירום הלאומי, the emergency food storage of Israel, right? Like many countries, they have an emergency food storage in the case of war or famine, or they need to stock up on supplies because of lack of access. It says here, בניסיון להוריד את המחירים הגבוהים, in an attempt to lower the price of baby formula.
גבוהים.
בעצם הציבור משלם פה פעמיים, פעם אחת כשהוא רכש עבור מחסני החירום, ופעם שנייה כשהוא ילך אל הקמעונאי.
And the independent news reporter says that the public, in exchange, for supposedly lowering the price of this baby formula into the market is actually paying twice. One to the national food storage because that needs to be replenished. And the second, right?
עבור מחסני החירום, ופעם שנייה,
And the second, כשהוא ילך לקמעונאי, when he goes to the retailer, right? Because the retailer is typically not selling a product at face value. He's putting some money on it for profit.
כשהוא ילך אל הקמעונאי.
ובינתיים המחירים משתוללים והצרכנים מבולבלים.
ובינתיים, and in the meantime, המחירים משתוללים, the prices are out of control, והצרכנים מבולבלים, and consumers are confused.
לא שמעתי על התוכנית של
לא שמעתי על התוכנית של ברקת. I didn't hear about this program.
ברקת.
זה מאוד טוב לצרכן.
It's really good for the consumer. זה טוב מאוד טוב לצרכן. זה מאוד טוב. It's very good.
זה מאוד טוב. זה מאוד יעיל לצרכן. זה יעזור למאות אנשים.
זה מאוד יעיל לצרכן. It's very effective or efficient for the consumer. It will help hundreds of people.
איפה שמחיר טוטו אני בא.
Wherever the better price is, I go, she says.
התוכנית היומרנית של ברקת יוצאת היום לדרך ללא ברכתן של רשתות השיווק שגורפות רווחים גדולים גם בלי 50 מיליון שקלים מהשר.
The scheme goes ahead even without the blessing of the major supermarket chains. Right? ללא ברכתן של רשתות
השיווק שגורפות
רווחים גדולים who are raking in huge profits even without the 50 million shekel from the government ministry.
גדולים גם בלי 50 מיליון שקלים מהשר.
Okay, so altogether, not Harry Potter, right? Altogether, we understand that on the one hand, this is a scheme to try to get the prices of things down, the yoker mechia, right? On the other hand, we're understanding that there's a lot of holes in this. First off, that people in the public don't know about this. You yourselves probably don't know about this because it wasn't reported in English, and it hasn't been reported in many places. Even the full list of products included in this hasn't been listed yet. We saw some of those products, not exactly the healthiest, and also not exactly the most competitive ones, meaning that these are big brands that don't necessarily need a break on their side. And the cost still may not be as effective for the consumer at the end of this day, this mezam, this michraz, this bid to do something different, right? So I slowed it down at about 75% for you. You're going to get a link to the news article as well as the vocabulary list. For joining us on Wednesday, you're going to be using the vocabulary I just shared with you. You're going to get a copy of it. You're also going to get a link, a list, of conversation prompts that have different ways that you're going to talk in your breakout rooms at any level. Those of you who join us already for Cafe Oleh conversations, you know how it goes. But whether you're at beginners, intermediate, or advanced, or anywhere in the middle, you're going to be given conversation prompts to talk about what we just saw. You'll get a link to it again so you can watch it on your own and discuss what you think about this scheme. Does it work for you? Does it not work for you? I'm going to try to get a list of the 100 items so you can also go through the list and see, does this work for me? Does this scheme, this Sal Shel Israel, work for me? And also, as we've talked about in the past, but a great way to further talk, if we're going to be talking about saving money, what are your tips for saving money here in Israel? Because that's always important. For example, we've talked about the fact that today's Monday. On Tuesdays, usually the big supermarket chains have a discount on their fruits and vegetables because Wednesday and Thursday are the days they restock. So those of you who are already in Israel looking to restock your fridge, tomorrow's a great day to get some good discounts on fruits and vegetables. Also tomorrow, if we're already talking about consumer news, tomorrow is the beginning of the annual winter sale at IKEA. Some of you may call it IKEA, which is also a very popular thing for Israelis to go to save some money on home goods. With that, I'm going to take some questions. Again, Wednesday's class is going to be about discussing what we just saw. And hopefully by then I'll also have a list of the 100 items, because again, this just made the news. So it's not only why it's not in English, it's not even fully detailed in Hebrew. Next week's class, we're going to start a new topic, which I'm excited to bring to you. So just as we do media literacy, how to read the news every few weeks or so, we're going to be looking at a piece of Israeli culture every few weeks, usually probably once a month or once every month and a half, that is something that mainstream Israelis know and maybe even take for granted. But for those of us, myself included, who had to learn it because we didn't grow up here, or we're moving here, or we're just learning the language, let alone the cultural nuances and the inside jokes. We've done segments on jokes before and running jokes and cliches and things like that. This is going to be a piece of culture or a piece of Israeli society that you wouldn't necessarily know about on your own or even learning Hebrew abroad, but here in Israel is taken for granted. So next week, we're going to be looking at that. If you have any suggestions, you're welcome to write to me because this is going to be an ongoing series. So if you have anything that you have found has been really important to understanding Israelis and Israeli culture and Israeli society, please send it in because we're always about taking suggestions. We have a lot of suggestions for upcoming classes from you. So we're really excited for that new class next week. In the meantime, we have our Cafe Oleh conversations. Again, Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Israel time, also on Zoom. The link is both in the chat and it will be in your email reminders as well as on the Nefesh B'Nefesh website. You are more than welcome to attend. All levels are welcome and included. I'm going to look at questions in the Q&A with the time that we have remaining. If you have any questions for me about what we just covered, please write them in the Q&A. What is the difference between salchan and lakoach? Great question. Salchan is a consumer. Lakoach is a customer. Just like in English, there are two different words. A consumer versus a customer. Salchan, consumer. Lakoach, customer. In the news, I often hear a word that sounds like the former New York mayor. I don't know what context you're talking about. That could be the name of Syria's current leader, El Jolani, right? His name is the Arabic equivalent of Golani. That may be who you're referring to. Are all food products kosher in stores? No. No. All products in Israel do not have to be kosher. First off, because not everyone keeps kosher in Israel. This is a Jewish and democratic state, and so therefore that tension or balance, however you want to see it, allows for all foodstuffs to come to Israel. There are definitely non-kosher products in Israel. There are also products that have both kosher and non-kosher versions in Israel, but not every product in Israel will. Just like abroad, if keeping kosher is important to you, kashrut, you'll look for the hechsher, the tag on it that indicates that it's kosher. In Hebrew, by the way, we say kasher. We've talked about this before. It's not kosher. Kosher is the Ashkenazi pronunciation of the word kasher in Hebrew. So if you're asking, is this kosher? Ze kasher or lo kasher? Yeah, that's how you'll say it in modern Hebrew. Safek is a doubt. Safkanim are doubters. When you put a nun at the end of a word, we've had a lesson about this several months ago about creating new words. Nun at the end of words can indicate someone, a profession or someone, or describing someone. So for example, a nehenatan is a hedonist, coming from the verb lehenot, to enjoy. So someone who enjoys, nehenatan, a hedonist. A safkan is a doubter, right? Someone who has safek, who has doubt. Hashivuk in Hebrew, you have two consecutive vowels with the dot in the middle. It sounds boo. What is the grammatical rule? The word is shuk. We create a new word out of shuk. Shuk is not a Hebrew word. And so it undergoes some transformation when we turn it into the verb lishavek, to market, and the verbal noun of it, shivuk, marketing. Why is it shivuk? Because we want to indicate that that middle sound, instead of being pronounced just as U, is actually pronounced its full name, Vav. So shivuk, even though it comes from the word shuk, wherein the Vav is silent and simply has the U vowel, in the word and the verb related to marketing and markets, shivuk, lishavek, we pronounce both the Vav as well as that vowel. Is the requirement not to put expired stuff on the shelf in supermarkets? Absolutely. All products in Israel have an expiration date, and they are meant to be pulled off in before or after their expiration dates. I enjoy listening to Khan Radio, but I wish I knew programs were being broadcast at which time. There is on the Khan website. We looked at a article, a news segment from Khan on YouTube, but you can access all this on Khan's website. We've talked about all the different media sites before. It's khan.org.il. And if you go to the website, you will see a program schedule. In Hebrew, Luach Shidurim. You'll see a list of all the programs that are happening across their network. Wouldn't it be better for the government to prevent price fixing by the major chains? A totally legitimate question that is worth talking about in Wednesday's Cafe Oleh Conversations class. Okay. So with that, we're going to break early today, but I encourage you all to not just watch the recording and go over the vocabulary list, which will be up on YouTube in the next day, but to join us for Wednesday's class. If you don't have the link, you can always go to the Nefesh B'Nefesh website and sign up there. Wednesday, we're going to talk about talking about. So we're going to take this example of a news article, and in your breakout rooms, you're going to ask each other questions about what you think about it. How do you save money? Do you think this is going to be an effective program? And so forth. I highly recommend you joining it, both because this is an issue that affects all Israelis all the time, the cost of living, Yokar Mechia, something we talk about quite a lot. And again, as of 8:53, although I haven't checked in the last 53 minutes, this article was not, and this topic was not discussed in English anywhere on the news, but it affects everyone in Israel, including native English speakers who don't speak Hebrew. And you need to know what affects you here in Israel in everyday life. So with that, Toda Rabah, thank you all for joining. This recording will be up in the next few days. And whether you join us on Wednesday for Cafe Oleh Conversations or next week for Israeli Culture, Toda Rabah, thank you all, and Lihitraot. See you all very soon.